Attention to an altogether more difficult story. Families fear that a new test for Down's syndrome will spark an increase in abortions. It's set to become available on the NHS and is 99% accurate at telling pregnant women how likely their baby is to have the condition. So far, so good. What's the problem? Well, very simply, many parents of children with Down see it as a form of eugenics, and they don't think it's a disease that needs to be eradicated. And I would agree with them from the perspective of not actually having a personal investment in this story, or at least a first-hand personal investment in this story. It does seem to me to be pretty brutal. But what do I know? What do I know? I know what it's like to have the test. I know what it's like to have the conversation with your partner about what you will do if it comes back positive. I also know what it's like second-hand to deal with the news that it's come back positive. And oddly, I know what it's like second-hand to make the decision to continue with the pregnancy and to make the decision not to. But whether or not there's anything inherently wrong about making the test more reliable, you can already have a test, of course, most mums do, just making it incredibly more reliable and considerably less invasive. It's also a lot cheaper. It's $280 per test, which is less than half what it costs at the moment for amniocentesis. I wonder. I just wonder whether or not this is as controversial as some people suggest. How do you answer that question? I don't know. It begins, of course, with a parent of a child with Downs telling me that they absolutely would not want their life to have unfolded any differently. They absolutely would not have terminated the pregnancy if they had known that there was, in any way, a certainty or a high likelihood of this happening. But then I imagine, and the phone lines are open, 0345 606 0973 is the number you need. I imagine that there are people who do the opposite. I was speaking to a friend this weekend whose aunt is quite severely disabled. She doesn't have Down syndrome, but it was a congenital condition, and she spent most of her life in care. She's in adult care now. And there are three sisters in the family. There's the aunt who has the condition, then there's my friend's mum, and there's my friend's mum's sister. And they've argued with each other, the two other sisters, about what they would do with regard to grandchildren and children. They say if we knew in advance that our child was going to turn out like our sister, one sister says we'd have gone ahead anyway, even though she lives in institutional care and will do for the rest of her life. And the other sister has said, that's disgusting, that's barbaric. How can you say that about our own sister, that you wish effectively that she hadn't been born? So you can see why it's a controversial subject. I want to know what you think. 0345 606 0973. And can I tell you something as well? You're allowed to ring in this hour if you've got a personal investment in the story, which will probably involve a family member or at the very least a close friend. Do you know what? You're allowed not to know either. If you've got a child with Downs and you don't know actually how you feel about this test, you're allowed to ring in and talk as well. It's not one of those programmes where you have to have a absolutely entrenched position that you will defend furiously even in the face of epic refutation. Susie Dent tweeted a wonderful word this morning. You know Susie Dent, who is in Dictionary Corner on Countdown, and it's a new word for me, one of my all-time favourites. The word is mumpsimus. A mumpsimus. Do you know what a mumpsimus is? We had a couple on yesterday. There's a clue there. A mumpsimus is a 16th century word for someone who obstinately sticks to their opinion even when they've been proved completely wrong. That's a mumpsimus is the 16th century word. Bread and butter, for me, is the 21st century description. And, of course, even when they've been proved completely wrong, they can't see it. I'd sack them all. 8 minutes after 11 is the time. That's a lovely word. There will be no room for mumpsimism, or indeed, I suppose it should be named Trumpsimus, shouldn't it? No room for mumpsimism on the programme today. You don't have to have a strong opinion on this. If you've got a child with Downs, or a grandchild with Downs, and you just don't know, let's talk about it together. There's a lovely case study in the Daily Mail. A woman who was given the diagnosis while pregnant in 2011. She was even told that her daughter was unlikely to survive in the womb. She rejected the immediate offer of termination. They were also told that this is an exceptional circumstance in which you can terminate right up until the point of delivery. But they went ahead. She was born, and she does have Downs. She's now 4 years old, and she brings enormous joy to us, says Mum, and all that she meets. She leads a full, active life. She loves horse riding, swimming, music, being outdoors. I'm pretty sure I'd be like this parent if it had happened to us. I hope I would. But that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything fundamentally wrong in extending the test, both in scope and in accuracy. Let's get the phone lines open. 0345 6060973. And just to indulge briefly in a little bit of politics, Nick wants to know why it hasn't been on our news that Labour have slashed the Conservative lead to just 7%. It's a Corbynite conspiracy, Nick. We're all deliberately ignoring the latest opinion poll, and all the other opinion polls that have given the Tories an even bigger lead than they've currently got, they've all been absolutely top of our news agenda. And we're also deliberately not highlighting the fact that the same poll asked people who they'd rather have as Prime Minister, and the split between people who voted for Labour at the last general election between Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May was pretty much equal. So Theresa May, I think now over 50% of people think she'd be the better Prime Minister. Jeremy Corbyn languishing in the teens. That might be the reason why we didn't discuss it. It's a Corbynite conspiracy from the other side of the fence, Nick. The reason we're not talking about that today is because it's not news, my friend. This is, and it changes lives. In a letter to the Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, this campaign group, Don't Screen Us Out, warns that it is projected to result in a profound increase in the number of children with Down syndrome screened out by termination. And when you put it like that, screened out, human beings, lovely, loving sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, screened out, I think you get a handle on why it is such a troubling proposal. 10 minutes after 11. Lynn is in Edinburgh. Lynn, what would you like to say?
Hi.
Hello,
I would
Lynn.
just like to say that I'm from the Don't Screen Us Out campaign. And
Are you?
we are, yes.
Gosh, okay.
Sorry, you didn't get
That's a turn up, well done.
I'm the UK spokesperson for the Don't Screen Us Out campaign.
So you'd be the first caller on every other show covering this issue, but they'd have rung you to book you, and you've been kind enough to ring us and do it the other way round, for which I thank you, Lynn.
So obviously, I just like to echo most of what you've said. You know, our concern is that a new test has been brought in. You know, it's 2016. There's a human rights narrative now around disability. And we think, yes, OK, we look at a new test. You know, science is an amazing thing. But what we do is we look at it in a context of the ethics and the morals of how, you know, it will pan out in society. So while these tests were introduced decades ago, I think, you know, society has changed somewhat in its attitude towards disability. And that's really the issue for us. And this has been an opportunity to galvanise people. And, you know, you're hearing stories like the one in the Daily Mail today from Alison. I hear these stories all the time. I also hear stories about people being, you know, offered terminations before they've had the chance to kind of consider it all or whatever. Yes. We know that the information given out on disability is just not great at all. And sometimes people that are even giving out the test don't always understand the meaning of how that all pans out. And our concern is the issue is becoming more complex with the new test. We need to be spending more money. If we're going to introduce it at all, we need to be spending more money on information for everyone, you know.
I get that, actually. I suppose it's one of those issues about which, and this is something of a catchphrase on the programme, so forgive me for rolling it out again. It is one of those issues about which you know either everything or nothing. Isn't it? Because if it's touched your life, that's it. Crash course. You will know everything about it as quickly as you humanly can. If it hasn't touched your life, you know next to nothing about it.
Yeah. And many women will have passed through the screening portal and not known very much about it, and fortunately come out the other side. Because the reality is, very few people are having a baby with Down syndrome, you know.
Sure.
But if everyone's going to be offered a screening test, and so in a way, you're right, and you've got it. You've hit the nail on the head. In some way, it will affect just about all of us. But most people won't ever really know that it could have affected them in a different way.
The grim angle, if you will, element of this story is the mother, the father who have a child that they adore and love and care for, but can conceive of circumstances. It's an unfortunate choice of verb on my part, but they can imagine circumstances. If push came to shove and you said to them, would you rather your baby had never been born? Some people, decent, loving parents, will answer, yes, I would rather that.
Perhaps they would. I mean, I don't want to comment on individual
No,
life,
of course.
You know, and I do understand that for some people, situations are difficult. And that's, I think, part of the issue, because if we weren't spending so much of our time, focus, resources on screening, we would be looking at other issues and supporting people better in society, because there definitely are still a lot of issues around support and resources and inclusion. And I've experienced that myself. I do have a daughter with Down syndrome who's 16, so there are times when I've experienced, the limitations of the system, and I think that can be partly put down to screening and the way it's focused.
It's an incredibly nuanced conversation, this. Not just ours, Lynn, but the entire conversation. It almost is the very antithesis of how the media works in Britain in this day and age. It's all about the grey areas, isn't it? Because you can see the benefits of the test, and yet it's the mode of implementation that gives concern. And also the listening to you, I've learned, it's also the fact that we possibly are addressing issues that shouldn't be at the top of the priority list when it comes to Down syndrome.
Yeah, that's right. There's very little research carried out around, helping those with Down syndrome. So, that frustration, and I feel maybe for me this year as well, it just so happens that it's my daughter's turned 16, so I can look back on 16 years with some frustration at times around things like speech therapy, and I actually did write a letter complaining about the last 10 years of the way I've been treated, because I would like it to change for the next generation of people. I would like them to understand how important speech therapy is for us, and how, it can take longer for our kids to learn to speak, but if you persist with them, then they will learn.
Yes.
I've learned that they're late developers, and I kind of have to keep going on to people and say, could you just stick with it, because she is improving, she is getting better.
Yes, of course.
Don't give up on her, kind of thing. So for me, it's obviously been a learning curve, but we should, within our institutions, we should be aware of these things.
Indeed, we should. Well, can I ask you a silly question, Lynn? Do you mind? If I lived on the same street as you, and your little girl was much younger, what would be the best thing I could do to make your life easier, or just to be a good friend and neighbour?
As I say, just I think to include her, just to treat her like other people, and to have a bit of patience with her, and just to. I mean, we have been fortunate over the years. I do hear people saying, my family weren't happy, and maybe people just have seen us coming out and we're just like, it's fine, we're dealing with it. Once we'd got over our initial upset, I knew I would deal with it, but I was upset. It was a shock for me. We had a diagnosis at birth.
Yes.
But on the whole, I feel people have been very good at including us, and it was only really when we tried to send Rachel to the mainstream high school, which we were perfectly entitled to do, that we actually found for the first time people thought she shouldn't be there. So that for me was quite a late thing, and maybe that's fortunate for me that I didn't face that kind of discrimination before. They were quite happy for her to go to mainstream primary school, but when it came to high school, children are still not doing that have Down syndrome, so there was some resistance there.
So rather than possibly screening out more children, the effort should be going into accommodating and understanding the ones that we already have. Lynn, lovely. Thank you. I'm so glad that either you were listening or someone gave you a heads up that we were covering this subject. I might have to review my Don't Book experts or Don't Book the official spokespeople rule a little bit in the coming months. Thank you. It's 11:17.
From the LBC Travel Centre, good morning, I'm Joanne Webb. Long delays on the M25 anti-clockwise from junction 26 at Waltham Abbey to 24 at Potters Bar, where a car overturned earlier. There's still one lane closed for recovery. Long queues as well continuing on the M25 in both directions to junction 10 at the A3 because of the accident on the A3 southbound. So clockwise it's slow from 8 at Reigate and anti-clockwise from 14 at Heathrow. The queue on the A3 southbound from Esher Common down to just after the M25 at Wisley Lane. And long delays continue in Crystal Palace with Annerley Hill being closed. On the underground, the district line's not running. High Street Kensington to Edgware Road. Severe delays on the Circle and minor on the Hammersmith and City lines. And on the train, southern services are still disrupted because of the strike. Officially, the strike is over, but the strike timetable is still in place. Keep your updates coming. More travel here on LBC in half an hour.
LBC.
It's only one drive to work on one busy morning. One line of traffic. One meeting to make. One gap, one chance to go a bit faster. It's just one pedestrian crossing at one curbside. It's one ambulance, one police report, one public court case, one shattered family. That one time you drove too fast. One risk. is one too many. Think.
Transport for London. Every journey matters.
In the Multi-York 40/40 event, not only can you get up to 40% off our quality handmade sofas, you can also receive 40% off all footstools and selected coffee tables when you buy any sofa or armchair. Visit your local store and one of our expert team will help you choose your perfect combination. The Multi-York 40/40 event, now on at all our 50 stores nationwide and at multiyork.co.uk. Terms and conditions apply. See in store for details.
Introducing summer-powered offers from Vodafone. Get free roaming now on pay-as-you-go in 40 destinations with big value bundles from £10. Perfect with the Vodafone Smart First 7 for only £20. Check out all our summer-powered offers in store or visit vodafone.co.uk. Vodafone. Power to you.
Calls and texts to standard UK mobiles and landlines. 30-day bundle automatically renews on credited accounts. Inclusive roaming in selected areas. Ends 31st of August. Terms apply.
Shh, I have a secret. It's the Automatic Car Specialist. Ray Morris Automatic Cars specialise in, you guessed it, ultra-low mileage automatic cars. They have the make and model to suit your budget, from £5,000 to £25,000. Don't believe me? They've got over 250 cars in stock in South East London, just 10 minutes from the Dartford Tunnel. AutomaticCarSpecialist.com. The secret home for automatic cars.
Maxine and Leanna thought it was just another walk. How could they know they would be dumped in a box by the railway tracks and left to die? Abandoned animals need rescuing right now, and the RSPCA is struggling to meet demand. Will you help rescue animals? Just text RESCUE to 70030 and give £3 from your mobile. That's RESCUE to 70030. Thank you. The RSPCA helps animals in England and Wales with the support of public donations. You'll be charged £3 plus one standard network rate message. The RSPCA receives 98%. Registered charity number 219099. To discuss this payment, call 0300 123 0346. We will call and text you about our fundraising activity and ways you can support us. If you'd rather we didn't, text OPT-OUT to 70030.
James O'Brien on LBC.
21 minutes after 11. Families fear 99% accurate Downs test could spark rise in abortions. And our first caller has opened up this issue in a way I couldn't have done on my own. All I can do is listen, really, on an hour like this. And that's what I'll do if you dial 0345 6060973. I never know with texts whether you realise how brutal you sound sometimes, or whether you don't, and you just tapped it out quite quickly without reflecting on nuance or impact. But this one has come in. Why is it even controversial? I would have the test. Yes, there are parents who love their kids. I would like to know so that we can terminate the pregnancy. I'm not interested in the attitudes of parents or sufferers. Parents of sufferers or their opinions on my choice. They want to do something they think is dynamic. Great. I don't. I'd like normal, healthy kids. It's that simple. I understand your point, and I say again, I don't know if you realised when you wrote that how crass it could come across as, intentionally or not. But the whole point about not being frightened of difference is to have lots of it around. So in terms of how we treat disabled people now in this society, it's probably the best it's ever been. Don't forget that disabled people were on the list for the Nazis. You know, the notion that difference is something that should be rounded up and exterminated was not confined to people who were Jewish or Roma or homosexual or trades unionists even. It definitely, I think it even began with disability. And unfortunately, my friend, it couldn't have begun without attitudes like yours. And that is one of the reasons why Lynn was so powerful in her suggestion that screening out shouldn't be the priority. Inclusion of people born should be, and yet everyone admits this is far from black and white. Victoria is in Cheshire. Victoria, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hey,
thank you for talking to me. Listened with great interest to Lynn there. My daughter is 2. She has Down syndrome. I found out from the combined screening that we had an increased chance that our daughter would have Down syndrome, and I refused the amniocentesis because of the concern about the risk of miscarriage. I just thinking about this test means that I might have embarked on this course of testing. It's been available on the NHS, and I look back and I think how different my life could have been. We all know the film Sliding Doors, and I think if I'd slid through that door, what the difference could have made to me.
Did you?
I did
discuss with your. Did you discuss with your partner what you would do in?
Well, we hadn't really. We actually had a really difficult time when we received that information, because my husband's mother had actually just died just the week before.
Oh no, it doesn't rain, does it?
Yeah, so we were just we were a bit all caught up with that, really. I did genetics at university, and I was taught what a terrible condition Down syndrome was. I'd never met anybody with Down syndrome. There was nobody in my village growing up. And my preconceptions were very different to the reality. Having Albert has made me stronger. It's made me more aware of, just the everyday and how well we're all able to actually face those things that scare us the most.
Yes.
And
it's counterintuitive, isn't it, listening to you? It's counterintuitive because you can list all the wonderful benefits that she's brought into your life, but that doesn't necessarily mean that if you could turn back the clock, you would do everything identically.
No. I mean, it could have turned out very differently, and I'm glad that it turned out the way it has. Through having Alba, I've met an amazing community of people. There's a group, Future of Downs, that I'm working with. We're looking into this prenatal screening and looking at the information that's provided to people. When people receive a diagnosis, they often hear the words, "I'm sorry," "It's bad news." And, this just perpetuates the fear that, we have in society about this condition. And I really think that it is about working with parents, with healthcare professionals, to help people understand what having a child with Down syndrome is like in reality, that it's not this thing to be frightened of.
But you can't, I don't know if you could check, no, you're never going to have a situation in a hospital where a doctor or a nurse presents it to you as good news, are you, that you were hoping for?
I don't think so, no, because people go into the testing for the assurance that their children are normal and healthy. But there's a difference between presenting something as bad news and presenting it as fact.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true.
And there's this idea as well that Down syndrome isn't healthy. My daughter is healthy.
Of course.
So it's understanding these very subtle differences in perceptions and 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 helping people work through that.
And that was. Sorry, carry on, Victoria.
Go on.
I'm just looking at the either-or side of it. It's not because Lynn left us with that impression that instead of doing this, we should be doing that. It's not necessarily either-or. The problem is that if more and more children like yours and hers are screened out, so to speak, there's less and less need, impetus, or prioritising of being more inclusive and actually changing the nature of the conversation. So if the number of children born with the condition is massively reduced by this process, it leaves people like you and Lynn in quite a difficult position because the effort put into inclusiveness and understanding would diminish, wouldn't it? There'd be fewer people to include. There'd be fewer children to understand.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, I grew up where there were no children with Down syndrome or adults because they were in institutions.
Yes, exactly
and
that.
Weren't
And that's what
in
we would
society and weren't included. They were in, schools for the educationally subnormal, as it was called at the time. I didn't have exposure to understand the reality,
and that's true for society as well. You as I mentioned a moment ago, you fear that which you have no knowledge of. The definition of, if you like, xenophobia, almost a fear of strangers, would evolve into a fear of strangeness until you know more and realise that there's nothing to be fearful of. And that it's a subtle argument against testing, though. If you imagine yourself in the role of the parent, you can see the appeal of the test. If you imagine yourself in the role of the member of a society that wants children and adults with Down syndrome to be better integrated, better understood and more included, then the test becomes quite a frightening prospect. And that's what I meant at the outset of this hour when I said I don't think this is going to be one where we arrive at a meaningful conclusion. It's just it's a conversation rather than a headlong rush towards a destination. Victoria, thank you so much for calling. The time now is just coming up to 11:30. Rupert Bartier is here with the headlines.
3 children were amongst the 4 people killed in an accident involving 8 vehicles in Berkshire last night. 4 lorries and 4 cars collided on the A34. A man's been bailed after being arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. A police investigation's underway into what's described as a near miss between a drone and a passenger plane, which was coming into land at an airport in Cornwall. It happened as the plane approached Newquay Airport on Tuesday afternoon. And Donald Trump has accused President Obama of being the founder of the Islamic State group. The Republican presidential candidate repeated the claims 3 times at a rally in Florida and also accused Hillary Clinton of being the group's co-founder. LBC weather. Staying dry with a mix of cloud and sunny spells. Quite breezy. A high today of 22 Celsius.
This is LBC London.
Jaguar XE has been named Auto Express Best Compact Executive Saloon 2016. And what's more, the Dynamic XE is now available from just £259 a month plus VAT on business contract hire. Isn't it time you listen to the noise? Search Jaguar XE for more details.
Initial rental £1,554 plus VAT at 20%. 36-month Jaguar contract hire. Offer ends 30th of September. 10,000 miles per annum. Mileage and return conditions apply. Visit jaguar.co.uk for more details.
Churchy, wherefore art thou, Churchy? As a television, I have endured the ultimate tragedy. Water damage.
Oh, no.
But the show must go on.
If your old item gets damaged, we'll help you replace it with something more modern.
Oh, yes.
It's time a new player took to the stage, Churchy.
No.
Churchill, depend on the dog. Based on a modern-day equivalent available on items damaged beyond repair, underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Landlords. You can get landlord insurance with Direct Line from just £115. Can your insurance do that? 10% of customers paid this or less Jan to June 2016. Excludes optional covers. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Hi, I'm Jane, a track engineer with Network Rail. We'll be carrying out essential improvement work this August bank holiday from the 27th to the 29th of August to help deliver our railway upgrade plan. We're trying to inconvenience you as little as possible by doing this work over the bank holiday when fewer people use the railway. So please check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/August or follow us at #AugustBHWorks. Thanks for your patience. Network Rail, working for you.
Buying a new car should be enjoyable. Sadly, it's usually a huge hassle, and you're never quite sure you're getting a good deal. Not anymore. At carwow.co.uk, you pick the car you want just the way you want it, and within 24 hours, we'll send you up to 5 great offers from some of Britain's best dealers. Join over 25,000 happy car buyers and save on average £3,600 off RRP at carwow.co.uk.
James O'Brien on LBC.
33 minutes after 11 is the time. Mystery Hour on the way at 12. I think it's fair to say that will signal a change in tone. Routinely one of the most enjoyable hours that we spend together in the week, and indeed by far the most popular podcast that LBC puts out for free. Actually, it's more popular than all the ones you pay for as well, on a weekly basis. And there wasn't one last week. I always get an indication of how many people don't listen to the other 14 hours a week that we spend together when they mention that there hasn't been a podcast of Mystery. I think, you've only just noticed, have you? So you didn't notice I wasn't here on Monday or on Tuesday or on Wednesday or on Thursday at 10 o'clock or on Thursday at 11 o'clock. But, look, it's Thursday at 12 o'clock. And where's it gone? Well, it'll be here imminently, rest assured. Before that, a little more conversation about this test for Down syndrome that families fear could spark a rise in abortions. And also, we're going to catch up with our Olympics correspondent, John Cushing, who is, of course, in Rio de Janeiro at the moment, where we turned a bit of a corner last night, or yesterday, in the course of yesterday's events. Not only trebled our gold tally, but also picked up a few medals of different colour as well in the course of the swimming and other events. So we'll catch up with him before 12 o'clock as well. Back to the test, the Down syndrome test. Andy's in Seaford. Andy, what would you like to say?
I'm all for it.
Yes.
21 years ago, me and my partner, we had the amniocentesis test because of her age, and it came back positive, lucky enough. But we had decided that if it had been a negative result, there would have been a termination.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, unless people have a profound objection to all terminations and all abortion, which is a point of principle that is defensible. But generally speaking, you're exercising the choice that abortion legislation gave all women.
Well, that's right. And lucky enough, we split up a couple of years after, and I had custody, and I brought the child up on my own, which is something I couldn't have done if it was Down syndrome, because I wouldn't have been able to cope. I really admit it.
I suppose what we'll never know, the only thing that could comfort both sides, if you will, in this conversation is people who would get the result telling them that it would happen, that it would come back with Downs and still progress with the pregnancy, which a lot of people do. But I can't help thinking there would be fewer. Like Victoria in Cheshire a moment ago, she probably wouldn't have gone ahead if she'd known in advance. So we just would never know the numbers, would we, Andy?
No, but obviously you'd get fewer and fewer as time went on, Down's children. Yes, I can understand the people that have a Down's child, they want it to be included, they want a large community, to help that child.
Yes.
But surely it's better to have less, if you know what I mean. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but less has got to be better, I think, for everyone's quality of life, even for the
well, now but that's where it sounds a bit like eugenics. It's got to be better for everyone's quality of life to have fewer of these people.
Well,
no, mate, it's a short hop. It's a short hop from saying, let's get rid of the ones that haven't been born yet, to saying let's get rid of the ones that have been born.
Well, it's individual choice, isn't it? But
yes.
You can't demonise people for saying, no, I don't want a Down's child. I can't cope with it. That's
different. That's different from saying we'd all. I only pulled you up on that. We'd all be better off with fewer of them.
What I'm trying to explain, normally it's to the older parent.
Yes.
There's a higher probability. Okay, and that, how can you put it without sounding callous? They're loving this out, but that parent will die.
You can't say it without sounding callous. That's the whole point of this conversation.
But that parent will die.
Yeah.
What's the quality of life then for that child?
Yeah.
Without that loving parent to look after
and
them.
That must be a defining fear of all parents of Down syndrome children. Their life expectancy is considerably lower than non-Down syndrome children, but that's a scant silver lining for people who don't want to lose their child, even they're grown, they're adult child, but equally do worry about how that child will fend for themselves effectively in the event of them passing first. Andy, thank you. And that's why I'm going to keep saying it, because it is a little bit odd in the context of a radio phone-in for everybody to be kind of agreeing that they can't agree. Nobody knows for sure, but that's in some ways the most enlightening conversations of all. Nicola's in Epsom. Nicola, what do you think?
Hiya.
Hi, Nicola.
Oh, gosh, it is. I have a baby girl that's 7 months old. She has Down syndrome.
Do you know, can I tell you something then?
Yes, yeah.
Because I hope you won't take this the wrong way. I didn't say congratulations to you then, did I? Normally, I think, if someone had said, I have a 7-month-old baby girl, I'd have gone, congratulations. And because you added with Down syndrome, perhaps I didn't. And that was wrong of me. Congratulations, Nicola.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And she is perfect.
Of course. Of course she is.
So in regards to this test, I'm not against it. I'm not hugely for it. I think there's real positives to it. Of course there are. It's fantastic that it's going to potentially lower the amount of miscarriages that happen because of the invasive tests, like the amniocentesis, which I myself refused. My husband and I went for our 12-week scan, as you normally do. We were a 1 in 99 probability. Now, they call it a risk.
Yes.
I hate the word risk.
Yeah.
I go probability.
Okay.
Because we were 1 in 99, we were classed as a high risk. We chose not to have the invasive test, and we actually went and had a Serenity test, which is very, very similar to the Harmony test. It came back positive within 4 days.
Gosh.
I was 28. My husband was 30. So when I phoned my local hospital to inform them, I was instantly kind of told, OK, we'll arrange for you to come in and have a termination.
Not without even asking if you... I mean, the presumption is you would want one.
Yes, yeah.
Gosh.
Which I quickly corrected them on. I myself had never met anyone with Down syndrome. I had never seen a child with Down syndrome. I jumped straight on the internet, done my research. Of course, at the time, we're not going to lie, both of us were hugely upset.
Yes.
We almost had to grieve, in a sense, for a child we thought we were going to have that we were.
Yes, the child without Down syndrome that you'd been imagining and dreaming of, and who now would never be born.
Of course. We obviously went ahead with our pregnancy, which we were over the moon about. We still got so excited in all of our scans, and gosh, when the day came for her to arrive, it was incredible. My little girl Lily is just beyond amazing. And I couldn't imagine life without her. There's such a huge misconception for children, adults, everyone with Down syndrome.
That's the problem.
People refer to them as Down's babies or Down syndrome people. They're not. My daughter Lily is Lily.
Yes.
She's not a Down syndrome baby. She is Lily. Lily happens to have Down syndrome. It's a teeny tiny part of her life. I know so many people. This has opened me up and my husband up to a huge community, an amazing community that I'm so blessed to now be part of, where these adults, children, teenagers, they go to mainstream school. They go horse riding, they go to gymnastics, they do everything that my nieces and my nephews do. They do. I work with children. I've worked with children for 13 years. My daughter is, so far, she's hit milestones that children do who haven't got Down syndrome.
Of course.
She has had a very, very rocky start, my daughter, but that's due to other complications. That is not because she has a tiny, teeny extra chromosome. I'm all up for people making their own decisions.
I can tell that. I was about to say, I can tell that you're not the kind of woman that would sit in judgment on other people.
No, of course not. And I don't see why anyone would. I don't think there should be any judgment upon people who do go ahead with a pregnancy with a positive Down syndrome diagnosis, or people that choose to end a pregnancy. That's completely everyone's decision, but go into it with an educated decision. Get the facts. Unfortunately, the medical professionals aren't giving the right information. They're giving you negatives. Your child
doesn't that actually, although it is quite nuanced, that's the problem with the test, isn't it? And this is the point Lynn made, was that the test adds to that lack of clarity, lack of understanding, because it's another, and as you said yourself, when you get the phone call or you make the phone call, the presumption is you're going to come in and arrange a termination, and this will only increase that presumption, I think. I could be wrong, but that's the fear, clearly.
Yeah, definitely, I think, and again, you use the word fear. People are scared into doing it because they aren't given the right information. If people could only meet... If they could come and meet Lily, oh my goodness, everyone that's met Lily has fallen in love with her. And I have people message me. Lily has a Facebook page just to keep people updated on her progress. And I have people message me that say, I'm so incredibly sorry. I had such a misconceived idea on children with Down syndrome, on anyone with Down syndrome, and thought it was cruel almost to bring them into this world, and how wrong actually they are since getting to know Lily. And I'm so happy that if I can just change one person's mind to kind of open their eyes to, it's not this doom and gloom world, it's incredible. That's the thing. If people are given the chance to get the right information, then by all means make your decision. I'm not going to judge anyone, but make it with the facts.
The more informed your decision is, the more likely you are to be able to live with it. Nicola, thank you. Thank you so much. It's 11:43. I read this one out, referring to the previous caller, Andy, who I didn't think was particularly unpleasant, actually. He was very honest. He explained himself, and he admitted he couldn't really express himself, and he knew he sounded callous, but he didn't revel in it. which seems to be a popular pastime in this country at the moment, to be absolutely proud of how callous you are. He says, ask that man what he would do if his healthy child had all of a sudden become disabled. Would he get rid of it to have an easy life? What an idiot. It's not quite the same. Well, in fact, there's a crucial distinction. If you support a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy, you cannot compare an unborn fetus to a born child. The entire principle is built upon the idea that they are fundamentally not the same thing. But I wanted to read that out because a few people expressed a degree of displeasure with how Andy expressed himself. I don't agree with you, for the record. Although I would rather listen to Nicola all day than you, Andy. No offence. It's coming up to 11:45. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Mel Drew of Merton agrees with me. What a lovely woman you're currently talking to on the radio, James. And some early controversy on Mystery Hour with the Basically Alarm, which is actually a Twitter account, wondering whether they will be allowed to submit a question via tweet. The answer, I'm afraid, is no. And there are no special exemptions on that whatsoever. It's coming up to 11:45. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. We will continue with this conversation. We will conclude this conversation between now and 12 noon. And after that, we're off with Mystery Hour.
From the LBC Travel Centre, good morning, I'm Joanne Webb. Delays on the M25 anti-clockwise from junction 27 at the M11 to 25 at the A10 because a car overturned earlier. Also on the M25, it's very slow both ways to junction 10 at the A3 exit following an accident earlier on the A3 southbound at Wisley Lane. Now the queues clockwise from junction 8 at Reigate and anti-clockwise from the M4, that's junction 15, and the delays on the A3 southbound all the way back from Esher Common. Long delays in Crystal Palace, Annerley Hill remains closed, and in West Brompton, the Old Brompton Road is closed both ways. On the Underground, severe delays on the Circle Line and minor on the Hammersmith and City. And officially, that strike that's affecting Southern trains is over, but I'm afraid the strike timetable is still in place. So just like yesterday, large parts of the network remain suspended. Keep your updates coming. More travel here on LBC in half an hour.
LBC.
When passengers in your cab ask, do you take cards? How do you answer? If you're still saying, sorry, I don't, it's time to pick up PayPal here. Tom uses it because there's no monthly cost or fixed term. Chrissy loves it for the low transaction fees. And Lee was impressed at just how easy the Black Cab bundle was to set up. Don't be last off the rank. Join the cabbies already accepting cards with PayPal here. Fully approved by TfL. Terms and other fees apply.
Jaguar XE has been named Auto Express Best Compact Executive Saloon 2016. And what's more, the Dynamic XE is now available from just £259 a month plus VAT on business contract hire. Isn't it time you listen to the noise? Search Jaguar XE for more details.
Initial rental £1,554 plus VAT at 20%. 36-month Jaguar contract hire. Offer ends 30th of September. 10,000 miles per annum. Mileage and return conditions apply. Visit jaguar.co.uk for more details.
We know that only 11% of you love wearing your glasses. At Boots Opticians, we want to help the rest of you find your perfect pair too. That's why our specially trained teams are on hand to help find the right glasses for you. And with 2 pairs of complete glasses for £75, now's the ideal time to find a pair of glasses you love. Boots Opticians, for more ways to feel good. 2 for £75 on our Boots £50 range. Terms and conditions apply. Ask in store for details.
Believe. Believe in yourself, in your talents, your powers, your abilities. Believe you can step up, juggle life with study. Keep going. Believe you can do it. Tell yourself it is possible and know you will succeed. 79% of the Open University students we asked said the OU will help them fulfil their career goals. We can help you with yours too, if you believe. Take the first step today by texting OU to 60261 for a free Open University Get Started guide.
Learning Mancunian with Andy Tate and Jose Mourinho.
Right, Jose. You're the only manager to have won the Premier League, Champions League, the FA Cup and Europa League.
You're not wrong, mate.
So in one word, how does it feel to be a winner?
That would be buzzing.
Correct.
Mint.
BT Sport will show 42 Premier League matches, all of the UEFA Champions League and Europa League games, plus up to 24 Emirates FA Cup matches. 4 competitions, 1 venue. BT Sport.
We all know Route 66, the Mother Road, but Gemka Toyota has something bigger. For 10 days only, between the 5th and 14th of August, you could buy a brand new 66-plate Toyota at cost price. We'll say that again in case you thought you misheard. Buy any brand new Toyota with a 66 reg plate at just cost price. Visit Jemka Toyota today with branches in Bromley, Croydon and Sidcup, Edgware Road and Enfield, Bracknell and Reading.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with James O'Brien.
11:48 is the time, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we've had an incredible conversation about this new test offered for Downs, and we haven't, I don't think, arrived at any form of consensus, but we've got a slightly clearer picture of what it's all about. And just to mix things up even more, listen to this amazing text that's just coming from Paul, who's in London. He writes, as the parent of a profoundly handicapped son, I would give everything I own for him to be able to talk to me, James, to feed himself, and to be able to have some degree of independence. A child's health is a gift, and anyone who has a semi-able-bodied child is blessed more than they can know. Love to you, Paul, as well. That's it, isn't it? It's a definition of everything being relative. 11:49 is the time. Jollier tidings from Rio de Janeiro than we've become used to in recent days. John Cushing has